Give it a second. All right, here we go. All right, we are live now. All right, so we're going to begin this afternoon. Thank everybody for joining us. This is the ARPA Nonprofit Capital Project Fund grant request review. This is the large projects letter of intent review. Our committee leader today is Alithia Stanfield. So we're going to begin with a slide, and Rose, you're going to take care of this one.
It's not a Zoom meeting if you don't talk while you're muted, but thank you everyone so much for joining us. We did want to elevate that we will be listening, and we try to model that throughout this process, but there will be an opportunity for you to submit public comments. So there's a link on the screen, pinellascf.org/ARPA feedback/ where you can send us comments on the application or the funding process in general. And we do collect name and address, and then all of that information will be made public on the PCF website. So please share your thoughts with us. And a little Zoom housekeeping. We are asking that you indicate which organization you are representing on your Zoom name. So for example, I would have my full name, Rose Cervantes, and then in parentheses, I put PCF. So if you could just take a brief moment to update your Zoom name, this will help us if we need to call on you for the question and answer portion.
And I would also just add, I am sure a lot of you registered once and then forwarded your link. So there are multiple people from organizations showing us the same name. If you could please rename yourself to who you are and not who sent you the link with your organization name, that'd be good.
All right, so for our agenda today, we're going to, in a moment, begin with introductions of everybody that's here. We're going to take a look at the ARPA overview and the grant process. We're going to talk about the process status. We'll have a score discussion and the LOI recommendations from the committee, and then we'll adjourn our meeting today. To kick off introductions, I am Duggan Cooley. I'm the CEO of the Pinellas Community Foundation, and I'll ask our team that's on today if they'd introduce themselves, and then Rose is going to work on introducing the committee.
Awesome. My name is Rose Cervantes. At this point, you guys probably know me really well. I am the program officer for the ARPA Nonprofit Capital Project Fund. And I'm also going to shout out our senior program officer, Jocelyn Howard, who's also been doing a lot of work on this project.
I'm David Bender, the Director of Grants and Operations here. I know all of you as well. I help behind the scenes on this process, getting the gears turning and keeping them in the WD-40. So, yeah.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Stephanie Reed. I am a consultant with the Pinellas Community Foundation, and I've seen many of you during technical assistance and am working on the evaluation for this process.
Right, so I will go over just briefly what our committee is going to work on accomplishing today, and then Rose is going to introduce the committee. So the meeting today is solely to determine which letters of intent are going to move forward to the full proposal stage. No funding recommendations will be made today. Today's score on this on the LOI is not indicative of how the full proposal may score later in the process. And the committee, we're asking to please determine a reasonable number of proposals to move forward. We're looking to balance the burden of completing a full application and the time and effort to do that while ensuring a good number of applicants move forward. And to remember that today, $10 million in funding is available, and that is far less than what has been requested by the applicants. So Rose, I'll let you go ahead and have the committee introduce themselves.
Awesome. Thank you. We have a really wonderful committee that spent a lot of time and efforts to review all of the requests that were submitted for this grant track at the letter of intent stage. I'm going to ask our committee's members to share their name, a little bit about their professional background, and then to affirm that there are no conflicts of interest. Up first, we're going to hear from Tony Collins.
Hello, my name is Tony Collins. I'm president of the Blake Collins Group, which is a strategic communication consulting firm. I have no conflicts of interest. As I said, I know a bunch of people here, but I'm not on any committees.
Beautiful, thank you. Up next, we have Dr. Ricardo Davis.
My name is Rick Davis. I am the president of Concerned Organization for Quality Education of Black Students, which has been around for, I think, almost 30 years now, and is a strong advocate for closing the proverbial achievement gap in Pinellas County and hopefully the Bay. I have no conflict of interest that I'm aware of. My professional background is somewhat diverse, everything from multinational billion-dollar plus worldwide organizations to small community organization, and it's ran the gamut over the past 30 years.
Wonderful, thank you so much. Up next, we have Gail Grady.
My name is Gail Grady. I'm a professional engineer, civil engineer. I'm a managing partner for a civil engineering firm, and we concentrate on transportation projects across the Southeast. And I've spent time in my career on the engineering side, but also on the heavy civil construction side, and I do not have any conflicts of interest.
Wonderful, thank you so much. Next, we have Amanda Jaquez. Did I say that right, Amanda?
Jaquez.
Jaquez.
Yep, my name is Amanda Jaquez, and most recently I was the executive director of the City of Clearwater Community Redevelopment Agency. I have worked for a couple local governments in downtown redevelopment, urban planning, overseeing capital improvement projects, and I also worked for a private foundation in arts funding, and I have no conflicts of interest.
Thank you so much. Up next, Alithia Stanfield, our committee chair.
My name is Alithia Stanfield. I retired 12 years ago as an assistant county administrator with Pinellas County government. And under my purview, I had health and human services, community development, economic development, among others. And now I spend my time knowing my husband, traveling and volunteering with different boards and organizations, and I have no conflict of interest.
Thank you so much. And then we have Cherie Wright Jones.
Good day, everyone. I am Cherie Wright Jones, and I've spent a wealth of time working in philanthropy and the Tampa Bay community. I've also spent some time in nonprofit management, as well as consulting with nonprofits around building capacity. And most recently have spent time working in the community, building additional coalitions, particularly around issues that affect communities of color, specific to the drivers of health, social determinants of health, social influences of health, and that sort of thing. And I have no conflicts of interest.
Thank you so much, Cherie. And then we also have Michelle Nadeau.
Hey everyone, I'm Michelle Nadeau. I am an attorney. I have a law firm in Clearwater. I am board certified in labor and employment law. I primarily represent employees in disputes with their employers, and I am not aware of any conflicts of interest.
Awesome, thank you all. So I am going to spend a little time walking through the background of ARPA, and that is also known as the American Rescue Plan Act. So these funds came out of the federal stimulus passed by the 117th Congress, and this was done to provide some relief due to the pandemic or caused by the pandemic. And so this stimulus really established those state and local fiscal recovery funds. And the allocated money from that fund to Pinellas County was $189 million. And from that larger allocation, the Pinellas County government allocated $19 million to offset the harm to nonprofits by investing in capital assets, capital needs. And from this, the ARPA Nonprofit Capital Project Fund was crafted and is really able to exist because of the generosity of the Pinellas County government and the Pinellas County Board of County Commissioners. And PCF was hired and has been working in collaboration with Pinellas County government to really administer this grant process and to, again, support those capital needs that will be able to best offset the harm caused by the COVID-19 pandemic to our community and the nonprofit work. We did spend some time making sure that this was a clear process, and in the strategic phase, we designed 2 grant-making tracks, and that was really around project complexity. So we had small capital purchases and then the large capital projects. Both of these grant tracks have their own evaluation process and timeline, with the small capital purchases having 2 opportunities for rounds to submit requests, and then the large capital projects has only 1. That was broken into a letter of intent to, again, determine that feasibility of those projects to then be moved forward to the full proposal. So again, right now we are focusing on the letter of intent today. And the snapshot of how this first stage of the round materialized, we received a total of 78 requests for letter of intent proposals. Again, the initial amount allocated to this grant track was $10 million, and the amount requested from those 78 organizations was 83 million and change. So that was the snapshot. Okay, and now we will shortly be moving into looking at the composite score breakdown. And before we move into that, I would like to just go over a little bit of Q&A protocol. The committee members may ask an applicant who's present at the meeting to answer a question about their request for clarification. If you are asked a question, we ask that you use the raise hand function on Zoom, and you will be unmuted. If you're on the phone, you will be dialing *9, and then we'll be able to connect you that way. And then gentle reminder, to be cognizant of time and efforts, you will have 3 minutes to respond to the question. After 3 minutes, to keep the flow, we will be muting you with no exceptions, again, keeping it fair and timely. And we really encourage you to answer the question posed. This is not additional space to advocate for your request or to answer questions outside of what was asked. So just keep it focused and answer the question to the best of your ability. And that's really the Q&A function. Again, thank you for being here. We're going to now move over to,
real quick and sorry to interrupt. No one can rename themselves. I apologize. We did not, that was a setting that we didn't know we had to enable before the meeting. So please just do not raise your hand unless you're being asked a question. So sorry, everyone.
No problem. Thank you, David. Okay, so now we're going to the score breakdown, and will I be sharing that, David, right?
Yes.
Okay, just double check it.
And I will put in the chat for all attendees a link to the scoring breakdown in just one moment so that you don't have to just look at the screen share. It's a PDF file for everyone.
Thank you, David. So now we have the score breakdown. Oops. Should I just scroll a little bit, David, or?
I think that looks pretty good. And
Okay.
I think our committee members have the entire access to the entire sheet, but we can shrink it and move it, and we'll let Alithia take over the meeting.
Thank you.
Okay. First, I would like to thank all of the agencies that submitted proposals for this process. It was a bit overwhelming at times, reviewing the applications and trying to balance and be fair to all that submitted proposals. I'd like to thank my committee members, because I know that this was a challenge for you as well in attempting to be fair to the 78, well, really 79 proposals that we reviewed. And finally, I'd like to thank the staff and commend you for, we sent you this information on Tuesday, and you compiled it all together and have presented it to us today in a very excellent manner so that we can move through this process. As has been stated, we have $10 million that was allocated to the large capital group, over $80 million in request. I don't know whether you had an opportunity to compare your personal scores with the composite that was provided, but I did, and I was pleased to see we were sort of all on the same wavelength as the organizations fell into play. We have 15 organizations that scored 80% or above. And even looking at those 15, I think that takes us over our allocation. So just to start this process off, does anyone have any issues if we just cut there at 80%? Because we're still over the 10 million, and as it's been stated, just because you're moving forward with at this process does not mean you're guaranteed funding, so we can be over. Or are there any other suggestions about any of the other organizations that are below the 80%?
Can I ask a question? Have you totaled what that cutoff, what that total ends up being if we cut it off at 80%?
Do you know, Rose or David?
18.6 million.
Okay. So we would still be 8.6 over.
Yeah. Am I supposed to be raising my hand?
Amanda, do you have your hand raised? Go ahead.
Mute. Okay. I do. So my individual scores were remarkably aligned with the group, which I was kind of relieved as well, because there were so many great applications and you see the scores are pretty close together. I do have some concerns I'd just like to discuss about the homeless empowerment program. And I also scored Gulf Coast Jewish Family very, very high, and they're right under that 80 cutoff. So I would just like to hear about the panel thoughts on those if we have time for that. But in general, I am in favor of your suggestion of, following the scoring as outlined.
Okay, so it was HELP, and what was the other?
Gulf Coast Jewish Family and Community.
Let me get Michelle's question. Michelle?
Yeah, thanks. So I guess the 18.6, my question would be if we decided not to go with one of these like $5 million ones, then that, I don't know if that's enough. I don't know if we should include a few more, just because depending on who, we kind of go with, that could actually end up being a significant reduction if we chose not to go with one of the higher dollar ones. I also, like Amanda, had one that I scored really high. I scored Hope Villages of America pretty high, and they are at 78%.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? I'm going to pull it all together from the group. Okay. Tony?
So I'm fine with the 15 cutoff. What I think I understand about this process is that if there's going to be a cutoff at some point because of money, then there'll be a further review. Can I also assume that if someone gets eliminated in that review process, you just drop to the next one on the list, or is that not accurate? So if for example, somebody during the review process, someone's project isn't in the top 15, doesn't meet the next review level, do you just drop down to the next one in line, or how does that work?
Okay, the next review level will be the full application process.
Right.
So at that point, we will be reviewing and we will be making recommendations for funding. If we're at the 15 and we're at 18 million there, unless several of them withdraw,
right,
the timetable doesn't allow for us to pull somebody up and say, do an application.
I see.
Now, depending on what happens between now, this process, our group and the next group, there may be another round, but I don't know. The logistics of that next round have not been completely worked out at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Did I do that okay, staff?
Yes.
Jump in if I don't.
And I think I'd also add, Alithia, that you're exactly right about the process. So this group will move forward a certain number of applications. Those applicants will have the opportunity to complete a full application, which is going to be an extensive application to get all the details we didn't ask in this round. And it will be scored separately with a separate rubric. And then the committee, some of the members of this group are going to be a part of that large full proposal committee, but some of the members will be different. It will be scored all over again and have its own rubric. The thing that I will say about that committee may decide that it is awarding, depending on the complexity of the projects, as you saw in this review, some of them have multiple parts to them. And so that committee may decide to award full funding to a proposal. It may decide to award partial funding to a proposal, award part of a request that could be completed in whole. And so it will take on a life of its own. So some of them may not be funded in full, or that committee may opt to fund as requested. It will make its own decision about how after the full proposals are received, how funds one will be awarded and how much to each organization based on their request.
So Doug, that does sort of get to my question, because I think I have some comments in here about partial funding, but my question is, if somehow the funding process is such that it isn't 18 million because there's partial funding, what is the process? Do you just drop down do you take the next one up from 15 to 16, or is there some other review process?
And so I would say for this group here to send forward enough applications for full proposals that they'll all be considered on their own merit. We after this decision here today is done, we will not move someone up again from this list. It will be only from the list that you move forward. And so if you look at 15, that's $18 million, which may or may not be awarded in full. So if some of them are scaled back, 15 could be funded and 10 million allocated to 15 organizations. Or if in the full proposal, the committee does not find some of the proposal satisfactory, it may choose differently. So I'd say to award or move forward enough projects that there is room, but they'll be decided on their own merit in a separate application.
Thank you.
Okay, now I'm going to go back to Amanda and Michelle's issue. Let's start with Amanda. You were saying you had an issue about HEP, and then Gulf Coast was just below.
Yes, thank you. So HEP, I had recommended with some reservations because they lack an official bid on their project so far. So sorry. And they didn't have any plan presented to adjust to changes in project cost. And we did see this with several applications that they asked for the full funding amount of the project and they didn't present any plans. But for this one, they still scored pretty high for me, 78%, but I thought those were two kind of critical pieces that I felt like I would need to know more about before, just for them to be able to implement within the ARPA timeline.
Okay.
And then for Gulf Coast, they scored 94% for me, highly recommended without reservations. I just thought their application was very clear and that they had the capacity as an organization to fill any funding gaps, complete the project, on time.
Michelle, Housing Villages of America.
Yeah, so
Villages of America, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so and I had some reservations on some of these that would be going forward, but I'm fine with that because we can talk about it, at that stage. But for Hope Villages of America, my comment was that specific project, it's ready to go if funding is made. It addresses the economic harm from COVID and the actual harm of COVID through better ventilation. And it seemed to me like the exact kind of project that this should be funding. So I just liked that application a lot. I'm kind of, I think the original question was, are we okay cutting it off at 15? I think my thought, given what we've learned about what happens to those below 15, is maybe we go down to 78%, which would be 23. We tell the people that are, I guess they can see this, right? So if they know that they're lower, public. Yeah, if they don't want to, they know they're kind of low down, maybe they don't want to go through the whole process knowing that they're lower down, and I think that could balance the harm of, not the harm, but the, cost and the resources of going forward. So that, because I understand we're trying to balance, we don't want everybody to have to go through that process, but that's kind of because then that takes care of both mine and Amanda's concerns, I think.
Okay, so we're adding to the 18 about another 5 to 6 million. I just did it quickly in my head over. Gail.
That helps me out too on West Care, Gulf Coast, Florida as well, if we drop that limit down. So they would be line 23.
Okay, I see some noddings of heads. Do I have a motion?
I'll move approval of making the cutoff of 78%.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay. Any further discussion? Gail, your hand's still up, do you? Okay. All right, all in favor, would you please raise your hands? Okay, oppose? Oppose again, I saw one hand. Okay, all right, it's everybody in favor then. Okay. All right, so we will, staff, those that scored 78% or above will be invited to submit did I say motion pass?
No.
Not motion pass. They will be invited to submit a full proposal. And Rose, would you go over that timeline for us again, please? For the full proposal? Unmute.
Muted.
Thank you for your grace. So you will be invited to log in to the grant portal, and that full proposal application will be ready on next Wednesday. And then we will go from there.
Okay. What will be the deadline date for submission? Or that hasn't been determined yet?
Duggan, do you want to?
Yeah, we're working on finalizing the final date for the submission, and seeing if there will be any changes to that. At the moment, it's out there as a 30-day proposal, but we're seeing about if that's going to be extended or not.
Okay.
We'll also be holding an informational webinar for the applicants moving forward in about 2 weeks. We will also, with the approval email, you'll get details about how to register for that webinar. And we'll also be offering the same amount of technical assistance we offered at the letter of intent stage.
All right. Is there anything else before the body?
I think the other thing that we will do, I think with a little bit of time available to us, we'll be able to share any constructive comments that were received with the applicants, both those who are going to be invited to move forward, plus those who are not, in hopes that helps them with future proposals. So I want to thank the committee very sincerely for the time that you spent. Today is pretty quick, but that's because a lot of time was spent to review these proposals, score them, take your time with that. And many of you sent robust, helpful comments, which I think are beneficial to the applicants, both those who are going to move forward, plus those who had applications that are not moving forward. And so I want to thank you for investing the time to be a part of this, and your service to our community in that way. So thank you very much.
And I would also like to add, as Tony raised, if you have any comments and suggestions about the process, the applications, because I have a couple myself, please get those to Rose.
Okay.
And if there is nothing else, this meeting is adjourned.
What? One thing. So
yes, I'm sorry, Tony.
Okay, just curious. Now that I feel like I have, I'm involved in a birthing process. So
you want to see the?
Yeah, I want to see the. How will we be? Now that we're, I mean, if we don't go forward, for those of us not going forward, how will you be making us aware of what the final outcome is?
If you would like to serve on the full proposal committee, we would like that. So you would be reviewing these full, once they're submitted, you would serve on the committee to review the full proposals. We wanted that line of continuity.
Okay.
So that you saw the evolution of the request as well.
I feel like I've just spent, it took a little longer than I anticipated. I feel like I just spent, you know, almost a semester, maybe a half a semester. I was like, whoa, I want to at least get a grade.
Yeah. You will.
Okay.
And for those who are not continuing or don't have the time to continue, and don't feel pressured to do so, you're welcome to. We're happy to share results with you as this goes forward. We've been very committed to the transparency of this process. Always on our website, pinellascf.org/ARPA, is the update. All the applications at the moment are public and available there. And so if you want to see them, meetings like today are live streamed as well. But we're happy to share with folks the results when that takes place down the road. Happy to have you see the results of your work here.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you all. Have a nice afternoon. The meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.